And just like that, we are recording. So, welcome to episode number 14 of the Nutrient Health Project podcast. My name is Andrew Frisch, and to my left or right, depending on how the video lines up, is my beautiful wife,
Holly Frisch.
Holly Frisch. So, episode number 14 today. Today, we're going to be talking about what nutrition coaches don't want to tell you and what you might not want to hear, but what you might need to hear. So, continue listening to this episode. We're going to talk about what that subject is. We're going to talk about how to know if it is you, if this is something that you're dealing with, and if so, what you can do to fix it. So, and we're going to tell a little bit of story time here. And then if we don't run over on time, God willing, we are going to do a couple Q&As at the end of this. So, with that, let's get off to the races. So, what nutrition coaches don't want to tell you and what you probably don't want to hear is the sentence, you have to stop trying to lose weight right now in order to lose weight in the future. Okay? Again, if you think this might be you, keep listening and we'll show you ways to figure out if this is you, and we'll tell you how to fix it if it is you. But why is it difficult to hear, hey, you need to stop trying to lose weight right now in order so that you could lose weight, right? Number one, it's kind of like one of those like Zen riddles, like what's the sound of one hand clapping, or if no one's there to hear a tree fall in the forest, does it make a noise? So like you have to stop trying to lose weight in order to lose weight. Well, why is that difficult to hear? Because, I mean, a lot of times when someone comes and they hire a nutrition coach, or they're, just trying to lose weight, they're typically going to have a sense of urgency, right? By the time you hire a coach, you're probably already frustrated and maybe a little burned out, and you've tried every diet in the book, and you're working out, whatever, 5, 6, 10 days a week, whatever it might be. But people might also have a sense of urgency because they are planning to go on a vacation, or they have an anniversary, they have a cruise or something coming on. Incidentally, the people that usually reach out that have like the occasion that's coming up in 2 months, or I've had people reach out for a cruise coming up in 4 weeks, the people that come to us that are like trying to do something for a one-time occasion, more often than not are the people that end up putting it back on afterwards, right? It's the people that come and say like, hey, I need a lifestyle change, I need to change the way I'm doing things and fix myself, fix my health. Those are the ones that stick with it. But so it might be difficult to hear you're not in a good spot to lose weight right now if you have a sense of urgency, if you have something coming up, right? If you're an alpha type personality, if you're a hard charging type of personality, you're probably more, I think I definitely fit that category. I think,
I do.
You're sometimes hard charging and you're sometimes laid back. If all I'm going to say is between the two of us, if you come over on a random Saturday and Sunday and one of us is taking a nap on the couch, it's not the one that's talking right now.
He's the one running circles in the living room.
Literally.
That's him.
I am literally, in the morning, she's on the couch reading a book. I am literally running circles around here like a hyper chihuahua. But if you are an alpha personality, if you're a hard charging personality type, then you think you can just kind of put your head down and just keep blasting through walls, right? Just keep butting your head against the wall, and sooner or later it'll break through. And if you're in this situation where you need to stop trying to lose weight in order to lose weight, then you need to realize that more work does not equal results, right? That's the wrong direction. And we've had a lot of clients in the past, and we'll talk about some of this. We've had a lot of clients in the past who they just keep butting their heads against the wall, and they just keep pushing. And like, the only thing, the wall's not going to break. What's going to break is your body, right? So, you could also, another reason why this might be hard to hear is if you just have general frustration, because again, you've been trying to do this for so long, right? Like by the time you hire a coach, you're like, I want this off now. Help me lose this weight now. And if a coach is like, hey, I don't want to tell you this, but you kind of need to hear this, like you need to stop losing weight right now in order to lose weight in the future, you're going to be frustrated as hell because you're literally hiring the coach to lose weight, not to maintain weight or, like, God forbid, potentially even gain weight for a little bit. So it's not always easy to hear that. And I would say if there's any discussion that I've had with clients more than any others, it's this. It's you have to change up what you're doing. You can't still be in this big deficit. You can't keep exercising yourself into a hole and expect change to happen. And the ones that listen, eventually, it's always a matter of, oh my God, you were right. The weight's coming off. Who knew? And again, we'll talk more about that. But then there are ones in the past that, like, I've had this conversation with them 3-4 times, and I've literally had people who their hair starts falling out. They have to go get different surgeries. You know, things like thyroid down regulates. All kinds of bad stuff happens. So that's why we're recording this episode, essentially, is to help stem the tide of that and maybe, you know, hopefully wake some people up that are listening to this episode. So how do you know if this is you? How do you know if you're in a situation where you need to stop trying to lose weight in order to lose weight? Well, we've got to get some things to use as metrics. We have to find some figures essentially first to see kind of where you're at, right? Because I don't know you. We're just recording this podcast. Maybe I do know you, but I'm not talking directly to you. Maybe I'm even talking directly to you right now, but you can't answer me. And if you're talking back to this podcast, I can't hear you, so I'm sorry. I'm sure one of you just said something. So the first thing you need to do is determine your BMR, not your BMI, not your body mass index, but your BMR, your basal metabolic rate. What that is, just super brief, your basal metabolic rate is essentially like the amount of calories you need to just like subsist. If you woke up, and I'll tell people, like, if you wake up and you just kind of sit on the couch all day long, you're not thinking, moving, talking, doing anything that burns calories, BMR is like what your body needs to maintain the weight that it's at. And then you need to figure out your TDEE, which stands for total daily energy expenditure. What that is basically the BMR. In addition, you're going to add in activity. Are you working out? Are you walking? Your metabolism, the foods that you eat burn calories, right? So you have to find your BMR and TDEE. How do you find those? Well, just about any of the food tracking apps that are out there will, like, once you punch in your statistics, meaning like your height, your weight, your gender, your sex, gender and sex, I'm not opening that can of worms. What you identify as, I'll put it that way, your height, your weight, age. Am I forgetting anything? I think that's everything, right? It. Yeah. So I promise I do this for a living. Body fat percentage is important to know, but it actually doesn't play into total daily energy expenditure or BMR. But it's just a good thing to know, kind of like where your body fat percentage is, because you might be losing weight and gaining muscle, and the weight might not change, but your body composition might change drastically. So anyways, how do you find your BMR? How do you find your TDEE? One of the simplest ways, if you're not working directly with us, just search online TDEE calculator, online BMR calculator. And what you'll do is you'll punch in your height and your weight and your gender and your age, and it will give you those things. It will tell you. BMR is based just on those statistics. TDEE is going to be based on how active you are throughout the day. So like whatever calculator you use, is going to have, activity level, like none, sedentary, light activity, medium activity, high activity, and then it's going to multiply by a certain number to tell you what your total daily energy expenditure is, okay? Once you know, both of those numbers are important, that BMR and the TDEE, they're both important, and we'll get into a little bit more on why and how we're going to use them, but once you have those numbers, then what you need to do is determine how big of a caloric deficit are you in every day, right? Mm-hmm. So, what for you, like, what do you think a good caloric deficit is?
I'd say like 400 to 500.
Okay.
It's pretty good.
And you know that because you hear me harp about it all the time.
All the time.
What's too big of a deficit?
Over 1,000.
Right.
1,000 or over.
1,000 or over. And one of the questions that we have today that we'll answer towards the end of the show summarizes this really well. And I think a lot of people listening to this will be able to identify and say, like, whoa, that sounds very, very familiar to what I'm doing. So you have to determine how big of a deficit you're in. So how do you do that? Well, one of the best ways, really maybe the only way I would say, is to use a food tracking app. We've mentioned in past episodes, I think, that we use an app called Chronometer or Chronometer. It's just Chronometer. We use that for ourselves. We use that for all of our clients. But when using Chronometer, it's just like anything else. MyFitnessPal, Lose It. There's hundreds of them by this point. I'm not going to sit here and list them all off. But you are going to punch your food in, and you're going to see, like, on an average day, what I would say is if you can, try to punch things in for like 5 days. 7 days better, and just like continuously even better, because then you know what you're eating on a daily basis. But I would at least get like 5 to 7 days to see like what your average intake looks like, because your Tuesday calories might look totally different from an average Saturday calories, right? But so find an app, or if you want to do the painful like longhand, like pen and paper, and do all the addition like we used to have to do back in the day before the internet and electricity. I don't know where that came from, but track your food, do it however you want, but see where you're at as far as caloric intake. Mm-hmm. Then you're going to, with that BMR and Tdee number that you have, that's going to let you know what amount of calories are you burning every day, right? How active are you every day? And this is where some people ask me, you know, should I track my workouts? Should I track my steps? Should I track my activities? That is that's a question for a different day, but in this particular scenario, I think it's important to track all activity, because you might say you've used an online calculator and you found your BMR, and you use an online calculator that also gave you your Tdee, and now you're tracking your food in an app, and you know, let's say just for simplicity's sake that your Tdee is 2,500 calories, and you're tracking your food and you see that you're getting 2,000 calories. Well, 2,500 minus 2,000 is a 500 calorie deficit. And you just heard this much more attractive person to my side tell you that 400 to 500 calories is a good place to be in. Well, what you might not take into account is, oh, I'm also walking 15,000 steps in a day, or 8,000, or whatever it is, but you're walking so many thousands of steps in a day. You did an hour on the treadmill, or you rode your bike for 30 minutes, or you lifted, right? So you're doing other activity that's going to change. You're probably not walking, I'm going to guess, you're probably not walking the same amount of steps day to day to day. You're probably not doing the exact same workout day to day to day. If you are, that might be a problem there too that we could fix. But you need to track your food, and you need to track your activity in addition to that Tdee. And this is one thing I want to point out. Yes, this stuff takes a little bit of time, and yes, it takes a little bit of effort. And if you're listening to this and you're rolling your eyes saying like, oh God, I don't want to track my food, I don't want to track any of this, then I'm going to tell you, like, you're probably not going to get the results you're looking for. Like, you have to know where you're at. You can't get in the car and just put your head down and start driving, right? You're probably going to crash into something. Or if you do manage to get on a highway, you're probably going to be a threat to someone else, or end up nowhere near where you're trying to head, right? So you have to track these things, and you have to like care enough to track these things. You have to give a shit of like, what am I doing? What am I eating? Like, I'm genuinely curious every day, even though I eat roughly the same things. It's like my deficits or surplus vary just based on how hungry I am, how active we are, right? There might be some days where I'm behind the computer all day long and I've been reading and I didn't get a chance to walk at all, so I'm in like a 200 calorie deficit and I'm just not very hungry. Other days, maybe I didn't have a lot of stuff to do and I wanted to get 20,000 steps in addition to a really tough workout. And by the time 6 or 7 p.m. rolls around, we're getting ready for bed, so we go to bed stupid early. By the time the nighttime rolls around, I'm in a 1,500 calorie deficit, and oh, what do you know? I'm starving. Well, it's because I'm in a 1,500 calorie deficit, and the only reason I know that is because I punch my stuff in, and I track it, and I see it, and I care about it. So
you can't make decisions unless you know where you're at.
100%. Wise words, woman. So why don't you tell me a few of the other, like, if someone is one of the I'll cover this and then I'll turn the mic over to you. One of the biggest thing, God, I love you. One of the biggest red flags. So say you track all of this, you track your activity, you track your food, you know what your Tdee and BMR are. Anyways, you know what the numbers are. And let's say that you're in that big 1,000 calorie deficit or more. If you're in a 1,000 calorie deficit on a fairly regular basis, once in a while, that's okay, right? But if you're in a 1,000 calorie deficit or more on a regular basis and you don't have hunger, if you're not like, oh my God, I'm so hungry, that is a massive red flag. Big, 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 big red flag. And again, keep listening. We'll tell you how to fix this. We'll tell you how to get out of that and get the scale moving again. But if you are in that big of a deficit for that long on a regular basis and you don't have hunger, that's going to be a red flag. Holly Danielle, what are some other red flags that people might look for?
If you're very lethargic every day, if you are having trouble sleeping, you wake up a lot, you can't get to sleep, if you wake up and you have like no motivation, even poor libido, that's a big flag as well. I know we have a couple clients who have these, and one, she's very, very sweet. But there's times, like, she gets stressed out with her job. She eats mainly protein. She doesn't, she is way more active for what she eats during the day. And you'll see her anger come out.
Yep.
She gets a little aggressive in the workouts, or she's very, like, she'll put her weights down quietly. And it's bad. And the other day, she just threw her weights, didn't even care.
Yep.
So if you're, like, angry, you have a short fuse, you're very irritable, there's things that are out of your norm. Those may be signs that you're...
Yep, very much so.
Yeah.
And that's... She's here in the morning. She gets to see that particular client. And we love her to death. But, there's sometimes... And her job stresses her out. So it's all good. But she's definitely a candidate. And we've had this discussion, throughout the years about, like, her particular getting more food, more calories. But there are other clients that you don't get to see that I'm training that, like, they're just kind of always on edge. And I know that there are people that aren't eating enough food. And likewise, they've lost weight, but now they kind of have that situation where they don't want to lose anymore. They want to maintain, but they don't have the physique, the look that they want. Like, they're at the weight they want to see. The scale is saying, like, thumbs up, but the mirror is saying, like, a little more work to do.
No.
And it's a lot of times it's going to come down to them being in too big of a deficit, and the body is jumping to some of these fail-safe mechanisms that it has to survive. So another way to know if this is potentially something that you might be dealing with is if you have a cheat day, or if you have a day where you just eat dramatically more food, whether it's, a random birthday party that you go to, or you go on vacation. This is something that's happened a lot in the past with clients that over restrict. They go on like a 7-day vacation and they're texting me like, oh my God, I'm being so bad. I had a margarita and a piece of birthday cake or whatever it is. I guess they're having birthday cakes on vacations. I guess that happens. But, they do all of this and they freak out and they feel substantially better, right? They're like, I feel great. Like, I have a lot more energy. And then they come back and they're back into the rigmarole of the day to day. And within a week, they're back to like irritable and lack of energy, lack of frustration, or lack of motivation. So if you feel revitalized after having like a big kind of cheat day, caloric surplus, that might be a sign that you're chronically deprived and in too big of a deficit. Are you, another one that to consider would basically be, are you in a position where you've been dieted for a long time and your body's kind of adapted to eating healthier foods and more of a regimen, more constrained diet, more constrained diet, I guess is what I should say. Has your body adapted to that, but recently you've noticed yourself having like massive cravings, right? Like, especially for comfort foods, whatever that might be for you, whether it's pizza, ice cream, sweet potatoes, whatever the thing might be, peanut butter for some people. But so that might be another thing. If you have like cravings kind of popping up out of nowhere that didn't used to be there. So again, like any of these things, if some of these ring out, like she was saying, with a lethargy or a poor sleep or a poor libido, your lack of motivation. I've gone through that personally. I think you could attest to this too. Like the trainer that you were working with, like, cause you worked with me for a while, you lost like the 92 pounds, and then somewhere like, I don't know, around like after a year or two of working together, you went to work with that other trainer and he was putting you on like HIIT workouts.
Yeah, he was, just someone I found online, I guess.
Right.
And he, I think, mainly worked with like women who competed like in bodybuilding competitions.
Right.
And that's not what I wanted to do at all. But he had me very low carb, I had to, like, I did my weightlifting session for the day, and then he wanted me doing 5 30-minute HIIT sessions a week.
In addition to the weightlifting?
In addition, like, I had weightlifted and then immediately had to go do HIIT for 30 minutes. And I've never felt more exhausted in my entire life.
And I remember you reached out to him to ask him, like, hey, dude, like, I'm tired all the time. And what did he tell you?
He's just like, basically, you need to suck it up, and, like, we're going to diet all the way down, and then I'll, what did he say, reverse diet you out of it.
Right.
But, like, I was to a point where I was exhausted. Like, it was hard to get through the day. I had never used pre-workout in my life until then. And I ordered it just because I couldn't function. Like, I was so hit every day.
Yep.
And that's not great.
So, and I've been in that position too myself, just pushing, hard. And that's where now a little more educated at 44 years of age, I'm starting to understand this stuff a little bit better, thank God, where if you, every time you're going to work out, if you're like, I need pre-workout, and it's like, no, now I need 2 scoops of pre-workout. Like, if you're just not feeling the workout and you're dragging yourself into the gym, unless you're doing, like she was saying, unless you're doing a show, in which case that kind of behavior, believe it or not, is just normal because you have to push yourself to that extreme. Like, if you're just trying to lose weight and feel better about yourself and you're at a point where you have no motivation and you're having to drink pre-workout every day just to get going, then that's definitely a red flag. Yeah. So, one thing I want to talk about is, at least one of the stories is kind of us and how, this last kind of go-around, when we took a break from the podcast back in October, we were just kind of enjoying the fall and maybe a little more relaxed on things. Mm-hmm. And we got to a point where, coming into the new year, it was kind of like, let's cut any and all BS out. Let's eat, as good as we can. Let's clean everything up. Like for her, it's like cutting out Jimmy John's, right? Which, I mean, oh God, that's not horrible, but, and it wasn't just Jimmy John's. There might've been an occasional like Dairy Queen here and there.
Chick-fil-A.
Or Chick-fil-A. She was big on the Chick-fil-A. I hated seeing Chick-fil-A sauce in the fridge. For me, like at that time, it was, maybe a 6-pack on the weekend or something like that. But it got to a point where it's like, let's stop, because we didn't feel great. Weight was going up, sleep was falling apart and everything. So what we did at, December leading into January was like, basically, I hate the term detox diet, but we basically just said, like, let's clean everything up. Let's get all the crap out. And I'm talking to even like healthy chips, like the cauliflower based chips and bean chips and stuff like that. Let's just eat simple, clean meat and vegetables, vegetables, and like, what cashews and macadamias and stuff like that, right? Oatmeal, like just whole healthy foods. And it was a big, I would say 90-95% like chicken, turkey, and a little bit of beef with just any and every vegetable. We didn't, I mentioned oatmeal. We didn't really do a lot of oatmeal. We didn't do any potatoes. Like I told you, give me a couple months off of potatoes. So what we did for 100 days was eat a lot of protein and a lot of vegetables. Yeah. Carbs, relatively speaking, were low. Fats and proteins, moderately, high. And what in 100 days of doing that, of eating the cleanest we could, tons of vegetables, protein, we were both definitely in caloric deficits. You were probably averaging what, like 1,200, 1,300 calories?
It's more like 11 or 1,200.
11 or 1,200. And in that 100 days, how much weight did you lose?
10 pounds.
10 pounds in 100 days. Like,
which was obviously a little frustrating.
Right. And she, she got frustrated, clearly, right? So there were days where, we feel like we're banging our heads against the wall. But I told her, I was like, we're doing, I wanted to add the vegetables in to basically like help our gut, get more bacteria in there, help heal the microbiome. I love talking about the microbiome and how important a diverse grouping of bacteria in your gut is for your overall health and happiness. So that was my focus, was just trying to get us tons of vegetables, fix our gut bacteria, and get us feeling better, even if the weight wasn't coming off right away, right? Because this stuff goes in steps and stages.
Yep.
So after that 100 days, and actually one more thing I want to talk about, in that 100 days, because the energy wasn't quite there, what were you having to do at work that I didn't know about?
So I'd have pre-workout here before we worked out. And then I'd get to work and I'd have a 10-ounce cup of coffee. And then
Go on.
later in the afternoon, I need another 10-ounce cup of coffee just to get through the rest of the day.
Yeah.
And
How'd that affect
I didn't tell him all this, but my anxiety was just going up and up and up, and I was stressed, and I felt crazy a little bit. And I don't know even how it came out, but I ended up telling him, like, oh, I was having 2 cups of coffee at work, and he's like, what?
Yep.
So I was having all this caffeine.
She's getting probably about a half a gram of caffeine a day, which, if you don't know, like an average cup of coffee is like 120, 130 milligrams of caffeine, and like, pre-workout powders, depending on it, like the extreme ones are going to have like 300 milligrams, 350 milligrams. I think the ones we use are usually about the 125 milligrams of caffeine. And she was doing that, and a big coffee, and another coffee.
Yeah.
And it's like, because I make all the food, I do all the supplements, so I'm like, where's this anxiety coming from? And like, she was just anxious,
A little irritable.
I would say angry, maybe is a better word. You were angry sometimes. So that, like I said, that was all like the first 100 days of the year. And these last probably 82, 83 days now, we've switched it up. So we still eat vegetables, we still eat a ton of protein, but we've added in carbohydrates and we've increased the calorie load, right? So, and now, I don't know how often you weigh, but what would you say physique-wise? I mean, I know what I can say about you physique-wise in that change, but like, what would you say has changed since we've done that?
My weight has gone down a lot quicker. But I'm not where I want to be at on my weight, but my body composition has completely changed from what it was.
We're talking like I walk by as she's changing, like I just stop in my tracks. She's like, damn.
Like I see more muscle definition. I see my weight changing where it was. Like it's just.
How many coworkers? Sorry, I keep cutting you off. How many coworkers have said something about your weight loss in the last couple weeks?
It'd been like 3 or 4.
How many clients that have been here that haven't seen you as much, like, have said something?
Yeah.
I mean, just today, earlier today, did one not just give you a compliment? Like, whoa, so
I can tell a difference. Big difference.
Yep. So, and that's, again, just been from us, we still have the vegetables, but it's been smaller amounts, and it's just us adding in more carbohydrates and more calories, just bringing things up. And now that deficit is smaller on a consistent basis, and our bodies are in a spot where they're like, oh, okay, we can actually let go of some of this weight rather than holding on to everything. So
we had to go through those 100 days just to get everything back on track.
Yep.
And then
just to, again, because like fast food, processed foods are very inflammatory to your gut. Alcohol is very inflammatory to your gut. I'm not big on the fast food, but like in the past when I drank, I would like sugars. I wanted like candy, and that's obviously not great for you either. So it's just detoxing from all of that crap, the grease, the fats, the alcohol, the sugars, and just trying to get to a spot of a healthy gut, a healthy body. We did that 100 days, and now it's been, like I said, kind of adding all of that in. A really common one too, I have a nutrition client right now. I think I mentioned him briefly in the last episode, but he has been with us, I think today, he sent me a picture, I'm not going to pull it up, but he sent a picture, I think it's day 73. He is down, let me do the math, 24 pounds. The pictures looks like he's down about 40 pounds.
Huge difference.
Insane. And like, I can't wait to post it. He sent it to me. I'm like, I want to put this up right now, but like we're waiting for his final version essentially. But I'm bringing him up because I had him set at a certain caloric number, and his deficit was a little more than I wanted. So I told him like, hey, if you want to lose weight, you have to eat more. We've got to get you closer. Like I started just kind of simple, like I want you to hit 100% of your calories, 100% of your protein, and then either 100% of your carbs or 100% of your fats to just start to get some of those numbers up, right? So obviously he's going over a little bit on protein, or he went over a little bit on carbohydrates, but I would rather see someone be higher and closer to appropriate goals over the long term, because that's going to ensure consistent, healthy weight loss all the way across. It's a small enough deficit so your body is like basically coerced into letting go of weight. Whereas if you're in too big of a deficit for too long, sure, you might get a bigger loss initially, But again, all of those symptoms that we talked about are going to kick in, and your body's got those fail-safe mechanisms, so you might have a bigger amount of weight loss up front, but over time that weight loss is going to slow to a crawl. And if you're still listening, you know that the weight's probably just not moving anymore, and your body is fighting back like tooth and nail. So I had to have that conversation with this client, like I do with multiple clients, of like, hey, there's a caloric teeter-totter here, and you could obviously, if you eat too much, you're going to put on weight. And if you eat too little, like I said, you'll lose weight. But if it's too little, the weight loss is going to slow down. So you've got to find that balance, like we talked about in episode 13, last week's episode, as far as finding your balance on that spectrum, right? And trying to figure out like where should you be. So one thing too, to shift it a little bit, not too much, but it's very, very common to see, at least like all of my social media feeds is like nothing but like workout activities and nutrition coaching and all this. So I get bombarded with it. I don't know if anybody else in the world sees any of this stuff, but one of the things I see a lot is coaches saying, if you're not in a caloric deficit, you're not losing weight. And if you are in a caloric deficit, then you're losing weight. And that is something that I can't believe it's still being debated on and still argued over. It's like, how the hell are we still contemplating flat earth? Because it's not just about the effing calories. And I know if some other trainers and coaches in the industry hear this, they'll put me on blast and they'll excerpt this and they'll be like, yes it is, and they'll come at me with all kinds of studies and everything supporting why it is. And all I'll say to that is, sometimes it takes the science and the studies decades to catch up to what people in the field actually know. Mm-hmm. And what I'll add to that is that in addition to coaching clients one-on-one, doing personal training and nutrition coaching calls, I also consult, and I consult with weight loss clinics. And I see time after time after time, these weight loss clinics, the patients are, and these are like medically supervised, right? So these are clients that are tracking their food, that are punching things in. They're on very high protein, very low calorie diets. And these are people that are getting, 180, 240, 260 grams of protein, depending on the size of the person. And they're getting, 800, 900, 1,000. Yeah, 1,000 calories, right? And like 800, 900, 1,000 calories is low for any human being, unless you're like below 5 feet or below like 12 years of age. So, and these people that are tracking those low amounts of food, when I get called in, when I'm consulting, when I get called in to review someone's food journal that I don't know, or to do a phone call with someone that I don't know, I get called in after they've been plateaued for weeks, or in some cases months. And what the people on the social medias that say it's all about calories will tell you is, if you feel like you're in a caloric deficit and you're still not losing weight, you're not really in a caloric deficit. You must be drinking calories that you're not accounting for, or you're having cheat meals that you're not logging, or maybe you're drinking alcohol every night that you don't want to punch in there, or maybe you're just totally mismeasuring all of your food and that scale is just completely false. And to what I would say to that is, again, dealing with hundreds of people that this has happened with, like, even if one person out of all those people is like tracking everything, not drinking, not cheating, they're logging everything. If one person is truly genuinely eating 800 to 900 calories a day and they're still not losing weight, then that would kind of dispel that it's just about calories. So, and this is where, like, it's not just about calories. What I would say is, it's about calories, it's about hormones, it's about recovery, it's about so many more variables than we have time to even talk about on this damn podcast, but it's not just about calories. And if you hire a coach that tells you it's just about calories, you need to go in the other direction, because they're going to be very myopically focused just on calories, and they're not going to account for the endocrinology or the recovery or your activity levels or any of this other stuff. So sorry.
No, I was just saying, I mean, I've seen it with myself where it's like, I've been low calories for a little bit, and I think I had like over 3,000 calories one day,
right?
And I lost like 3 pounds overnight,
yep,
just because my body needed that.
Well, and that's a great point too, because like, even so, one of the next things I was going to talk about is like, one of the first things I'll do with those weight loss clinic patients, is increase their calorie load, like have them eat more food. And like, first off, they're like, are you sure? Is that okay? And it's like, yes, please eat more food. And like 9 times out of 10, they start losing weight by eating more food. Mm-hmm. So that kind of tells you that it's, the whole thing, it's all about calories, like being in a caloric deficit. That's kind of bunk, because like she just said, she lost 10 pounds in 100 days at like 11 to 1200 calories. And now that you're closer to like 16 to 17, would you have like 19 last night?
Yeah.
Right?
Well,
a little more.
I think I had like 2000
Oh.
last night and
Right.
then 19 the day before.
Yeah. So, but like when she eats more now, like everything tightens up because the body's not in like, I don't want
Starvation
to.
mode.
Well, I don't want to say starvation mode, because that's kind of been like, cliched and run into the ground. But your body's not in protective mode. It's not these mechanisms to like make sure you're not going to die.
Yeah.
Right. Like, because you have to think, we evolved through famines. We evolved through feasts. So the body needs to be able to handle both of those. And your body is looking at chronic 1,000 calorie or more deficits as starvation. So you've got to think about that. Another thing too, as far as like eating more and looking for that weight loss, is like you can't be carbophobic in this, right? You can't be like terrified to eat carbohydrates. And that's again with some of the weight loss clinic patients that I work with. Because they're on that high protein, they think carbs equals weight gain, and that's not the case. Because another thing to think about is like your thyroid needs carbohydrates for the conversion of T4 to T3. And if your thyroid's not getting those carbohydrates for that conversion, then your thyroid's going to start having issues. And that's where, coincidentally, a lot of these weight loss clinic patients also have thyroid issues that either they came in with or they develop along the way. So you can't be carbophobic. But you also have to have a balance with that, going back to episode 13. So basically a lot of this stuff comes down to metabolic adaptation. And what that means is like your metabolism is going to adapt to what you're doing. So if you're supposed to eat, if your body is expecting and requiring a certain number of calories, and you eat fewer, then it's going to lose weight. It's going to burn ideally fat, but it can also burn muscle. It can also even, break down other body parts for the nutrients that it needs. Your body's going to adapt, and that metabolism, I don't know if slow down is the right terminology, but your body is going to initially lose weight, and if that deficit is too big, then it's going to slow down on the weight loss because it realizes like it can only lose so much weight, right? If you continue to lose weight ad infinitum, you're going to die. Right? So your body is going to lose a little bit, and then it's going to start pulling some switches and dropping things, like we said, your sleep quality, your libido, right? Those things are going to suffer because now your hormones are out of whack. Instead of you having good, proper sleep, well, cortisol is all jacked up because your body is saying like, hey, we don't have time to sleep. We need to eat. So it increases your cortisol to wake your ass up in the middle of the night to go find food, right? Mm-hmm. You don't have a proper libido because your sex hormones are suffering because, again, your body is now using them for cortisol, right? To get to like go again, find food, find fuel. You don't have time to procreate. I'm not worried about testosterone or estrogen or progesterone. You need to go find food. So like all of these fail-safe mechanisms kick in when your body metabolically adapts to too big of a deficit. So again, it's important to understand that like nothing is broken. You haven't like, that's like the starvation mode. It's I think it's people have talked about it like, oh, your body's broken. You got to fix your metabolism. Your metabolism's not broken. It needs to be healed, might be a better way of putting it, right? You need to be able to like let your body know that fuel in the environment that you live in is abundant. And if when fuel in the environment is abundant and when the caloric deficit is appropriate, again, 400, 500, 300, 600, right? Not more than 1,000. Those small daily caloric deficits that you put yourself in will actually lead to large amounts of weight loss over time, right? But again, your body has to know that fuel is abundant and your deficits have to be appropriate. They have to be balanced. Otherwise, metabolic adaptation. So how do you fix this? If you're like, this is me and I want to fix it, what do I do? Well, if activity is way too high, this is kind of something to think about. And again, the first question that we'll read here in a minute, you'll hear about all the activity. And some of you might hear this and be like, holy shit, like that's a lot of activity. I read it when she sent it to me and I was like, yeah, no, I've heard this dozens of times. Mm-hmm. So if your activity is way too high, there's ways that you can attack this that don't have to just be eat more food, right? Because let's say if you're doing a whole bunch, you're working out and you're doing 7 boot camps a day and you're going for hikes and you're lifting weight at home and you're doing all this stuff, and then I'm telling you, hey, also you have to eat more food, you're going to be like, well, how, no pun intended, but how the hell am I going to put more on my plate when I'm already doing all this exercise? So one thing you can do is just scale back how many calories you're burning every day. That alone will decrease your deficit, right? If you're burning 2,000 calories a day and you bring it down to 1,000 calories a day, well, you just saved yourself 1,000 calories and now you're in a better spot. So one thing you can do is if your activity is way too high, scale it back, get more rest, because here's an important thing to understand. In addition to the deficit, the workouts that you do, the weights that you lift, the cardio that you do, those workouts are creating the stimulus on your body for the change. But the change itself happens when you rest and recover. And I don't think a lot of people are great at doing, like, again, teeter-totter. They're not good at balancing that, right? They do the workouts, but then it's like another workout, and they don't give their body, and I've been guilty of this in the past, you don't give your body enough time to recover from it. So one thing you can do, reduce the activity, get some more rest, and allow your body to actually recover from the workouts that you're putting, the demands that you're putting on your body. Yeah. Outside of activity and decreasing it, one thing you can do is you can increase your calories. So, which is everything I've been talking about in this episode. How much do you increase your calories by? Well, small. In a short answer, small, short, healthy increases of about 10 to 20% of your calories. That's usually what most coaches who are familiar with this will recommend. That's what I stand by, 10 to 20%. So if you're eating 1,200 calories right now, even if you're in 1,000 calorie deficit and you're eating 1,200 calories, start small. And so if you're eating 1,200 calories, 10% of that is 120. 20% of that is 240. So you would add anywhere from 120 to 240 calories on top of that 1,200, right? So you would go to 1,320 or 1,440, right? If my math is correct. So increase your calories by 10 to 20% and stick with that for a week, 2 weeks. See how you feel. If you increase the calories by 10 to 20%, and in a week you notice the scale is going down and your hunger's coming back, then you're in a good spot. Go ahead and bump it up again, another 10 to 20%, right? If it takes a little bit of time and you notice that you put on a little bit of weight, like add that 10 to 20% and just stick with it for a couple weeks and allow that to kind of suss out, right? Let your body say like, oh, okay, we're going to come up to this higher amount now, and it'll find its kind of maintenance point. It'll balance, it'll be happy. So increase your calories by 10 to 20%. One thing, digestion qualms.
Yeah. When I first tried to increase my calories, it was hard because I'd been eating meat and vegetables, and so trying to get more, I got full, I got bloated, my stomach just did not like it. So a few things that helped me, we got HCl,
yeah. So it's
technical term.
Yeah, no. So it's basically, so your stomach acid is hydrochloric acid, right? HCl, hydrochloric acid. You can get, if you get on Amazon, I think if you just search powdered HCl, it'll pop up. But specifically, what we use is the Now brand, and we use betaine or betaine, however you want to pronounce it, but betaine HCl and
HCl, and then digestive enzymes.
Yep.
Ever since I got my gallbladder out, those have been a huge help for me. So I'll take those with my meals, and then also sauerkraut or any fermented foods really, but yep. I usually take like not even a spoonful, just like a little helping of sauerkraut with each meal, and like I'll notice within like 30 minutes to an hour after my meal, I'll start feeling hungry already.
Yep. So, and that's because that sauerkraut or the fermented foods are getting you the probiotics. One tip on that too, if you remember when I started introducing sauerkraut into your diet, like you weren't thrilled about it because you thought you had to have the whole thing, heaping thing. It was like, no, like just a couple bites. But she also was telling me that, like, well, I'm eating all the sauerkraut, and it's like it makes me go to the bathroom. It tears my stomach up a little bit. And I told her, I was like, that amount that I send you with could last you for like 2 or 3 days. You don't have to eat it all at once.
Yeah.
And I think since having that smaller amount,
I haven't had any stomach issues.
There you go. So yes, digestion qualms like the HCl, the digestive enzymes. Again, if you didn't catch what we take, the HCl is betaine or betaine. It's betaine, and then HCl, and that's now. I don't know if it's Now Foods or I think it's Now Sports. That brand, and then the digestive enzymes, we use Source Naturals digestive enzymes. So those things can help, again, the sauerkraut, the fermented foods, but you could also, this is one thing that kind of, most of the time when I say, hey, eat healthier, people think, oh, I must eat more vegetables. One of the things that I can actually help you with your digestion is eating either fewer vegetables or cooking really well, cooking all of your vegetables. Again, we mentioned our 100 days of like protein and vegetables. The first like 30 to 40 days, it was like, hell, even probably more like 60 to 70 days. It was really only like that last month I started introducing raw. So for the first like 2 months, 50, 60 days, it was like cooked everything. I steamed every vegetable, just trying to get those prebiotic fibers, even if they're breaking down a little bit when I'm cooking them, just trying to get those other foods into my gut, into her gut, and help us. Mm-hmm. So one of the things you can do is if you're eating a ton of raw vegetables and that's tearing your stomach up, cook them. And think about vegetables kind of like, I don't want to say vaccine right now because that's bad timing. I don't want anybody flaming us for it. But like, think about it like it's a preventative measure. So a small amount. If you eat, I guess what I should say is if you eat a little bit of broccoli, it tears your stomach up. Cook it really well. Still tears your stomach up. Eat a smaller amount of that broccoli. And what'll happen is you're introducing a new food to your gut biome, to that bacteria. And if you stay with it and continue to eat small amounts, you'll start to populate your gut with the bacteria that eats that broccoli. And then that bacteria will produce things that make you feel better. Mm-hmm. So stick with it, reduce the amounts, and steam it. So those are just some ways if you do have digestive issues to fix it. And I'll say too, I'm really glad that we did that 100 days because like coming off of the drinking and the candy and the fast food and everything, like my stomach, like there wasn't a lot of food I could eat. I had to be very selective in what I ate. And now that we've done that 100 days of like lots of vegetables and protein, like anything is on the menu. Like, yeah. I mean, I can eat and eat and eat and eat. And my stomach's like, yep, good to go. Bring it on. Give me more. Yeah. So that's just if you have some digestive qualms. So you're going to increase your calories by 10 to 20%. You know what to do now. If you've got digestive qualms, you know how to fix that. What do you do as far as your macronutrients, your proteins, your fats, your carbohydrates? Well, to keep this super brief, because I'm wanting to keep this a little shorter than an hour and 45 minutes like last week, but and this is kind of out of the scope of this episode, but to answer this question, because I figure it might come up, protein, you like the general recommendation of keeping it a gram per pound of body weight is it's a lazy way to do it, but like that's generally what I would recommend for most people. You can do a little bit less if you're a heavier individual who has a bigger amount of weight that you want to lose. You can do 1 gram of protein per pound of lean body mass. So say you weigh 180, 200 pounds and you're 40% body fat. So that means, if I do the math really quick, let's say you're 200 pounds, you're 40% body fat. That's going to be 80 pounds of fat. So you're 120 pounds of lean body mass. Check my math on that. I don't know if that's right. But whatever your lean body mass is, if you're a heavy set individual, find out what your lean body mass is and get 1 gram of protein per pound of lean body mass. Unless you like protein, then eat more of it. That's totally fine. Fats, the general rule that I try to follow with most people is getting roughly 1/3 of your total calories from fat intake. Again, that can be a little bit lower, it can be a little bit higher, but roughly, like if you're keeping it to about 1/3, that's going to give your body the building blocks that it needs for healthy hormones. If you start getting to like 20% or 10% fats, it can help you lose weight quicker, but your hormones are going to suffer for it. Your joints are probably going to suffer for it. And you can eat more, like a la the keto diet, but now your digestion is going to suffer for it. Your everything is going to get a little bogged down. And if you're someone like my wife who doesn't have a gallbladder, I mean, how do you feel if you have?
My body just does better with more carbs and lower fats.
Yep.
And like if there's times where I'll have a lot of fats multiple days, I'll start feeling bloated, my stomach will be upset, I'll get headaches. And so I just feel better doing lower fats, higher carbs. Now occasionally if I do it's been several weeks and I do a high fat day, I feel amazing for the workout the next day. But it's just like that one time thing that works for me.
Right.
And otherwise it tears me up inside.
Yeah. I mean, that I feel like anytime you deprive yourself of a certain nutrient that your body needs for an extended time and then you reintroduce it, you're going to be like, oh, I feel really good.
Yeah.
So, and that's on days that, this is like way off topic, but on days that I don't feel good, I'm trying to think of all right, what did I do or what did I not get to make me feel like this, and what can I do to remedy it, right? And I can generally figure out oh, I haven't taken magnesium in 3 days, or I didn't get any choline this morning, whatever, I haven't taken my vitamin today, whatever it might be. So
he's so intuitive, the most intuitive individual I've ever met.
That just comes from years of addictive behaviors, believe it or not, trying to fix yourself. So we've covered protein, we've covered fats, again briefly, but carbohydrates. Carbohydrates are basically going to fill up the rest of what you're eating. So that might make some people's butt pucker a little bit because they're like, that's way too many carbohydrates. Again, if that's the case, then put more into your proteins and more into your fats and slowly increase your carbohydrates. I'm not saying everybody on here needs to have 2 or 3 or 4 grams of carbs per pound of body weight. But I would say that if you can work your way up to, if you're an active individual that's not trying to do a ketogenic diet, working your way to at least a gram of carbohydrates per pound of body weight is probably a good idea, right? If you're one of these that you weigh 140, 50, 60 pounds and you're at 50 grams of carbs or 30 or 60 grams of carbs every day and you're not losing weight, try giving yourself some carbohydrates. It's okay. So that's one of the ways you can kind of slowly adapt, is just offset the calories into proteins and fats. Another way that you can get carbohydrates without really wrecking your system, because I knew I've tried to get more carbohydrates in the past, which that used to look like me eating more sweet potatoes or more oatmeal or more beans, and each of those kind of have their own problem, right? I would get a little groggy with the sweet potatoes or the oats, and I would get a little too gassy with the beans, right? So what I've been doing recently, because I've been trying to increase my carbs even more, is carbohydrate powders. So just like protein powders, you can get carb powders. And not all of them, but 2 of them at least that come into mind, will not spike your insulin. So that means they won't make you sleepy and groggy. That means you can get 25, 50, 60 grams of carbs in a quick little shake with some protein if you want to, and it should give you some energy, not make you sleepy. Those 2 types of carb powders are one, highly cyclic branched dextrin. Sorry, I got dyslexic on that. Highly cyclic branched dextrin, and the other one is waxy maize. So if you get on Amazon and search those, there's some products that I seem to find more waxy maize on Amazon than I could the highly cyclic branched dextrin. But look for those if you want them. Another way to offset your carbohydrate increase is if you are weightlifting, if you're active, trying to have those carbohydrates around your activity time, because eating carbohydrates and sitting your ass on the couch, those carbs are going to be used differently than eating carbohydrates and going to the gym and doing a squat session or doing a row or deadlift session or whatever it might be. So using specifically, activity in general, but more so resistance training, because your muscles will soak up glucose, carbohydrates that's in your bloodstream very, very efficiently. Another thing you can do is batch your carbohydrate intake. So have more of your carbohydrates, just like I said, around the activity time. But let's say you're not a very active person, and when you have carbohydrates that make you sleepy, have them later in the day and they will help you sleep better, right? Because carbohydrates lower that cortisol response that I was talking about earlier that interrupts your sleep. So have carbohydrates later in the day if they make you sleepy. If they give you energy and you feel better with them, have them earlier in the day, and be a little more active. Go for a 10-minute walk. We've talked about that in the past, the effects of a 10-minute walk and balancing your blood sugar. But try to batch your carbohydrates. You can try to batch your carbohydrates around your active, your most active times. Really, the actual amount that you're going to look for in terms of carbohydrates is really going to depend on your body composition and your activity level. So someone that's trying to lose the last 15 to 20 pounds, that's working an active job and they're working out a couple times a week, they're going to need a higher amount of carbohydrates. Their body is going to require that amount of carbohydrates to lose that weight. And that's kind of like where, we were both at after 100 days, is like we're active, we're working out, we've got 15 pounds that we're trying to lose or whatever it might be. Those carbohydrates help us get there. If you're an individual that's heavier set than that, you're not very active, then, work the carbohydrates in a smaller, smarter fashion. Maybe one meal have more carbs and then go back to the proteins, veggies, and fats, whatever it might be. But it's going to be your body composition, your goals, and your activity levels, right? You could be a heavier set person that's like, we went and saw some of the Highland Games this last weekend. If you're not familiar with that, it's basically people throwing a whole bunch of crazy heavy stuff all over.
Really difficult.
Yeah, and it's crazy. So if you're an individual that's throwing big heavy stuff, you're not going to be a beanpole, right? So if you're a heavier set individual, but you're in something like that, or you're a power lifter or a strong man or strong woman, like, you're going to have a bigger requirement for carbohydrates because you're doing explosive shit. So something else to think about. So again, I really want to nail home the point of carbohydrates. Like, they will lower your cortisol. So if you feel like you're stressed, if your sleep sucks, think about having carbohydrates around there. And those carbohydrates will also encourage that recovery, that the rest and recovery that you need from your workouts. The biggest thing I always say, the disclaimer, the caveat with that, is balance is key. And go back to episode 13, talking about the spectrum and finding your balance, because having more carbohydrates for some people, which I think is where some people become carbophobic, they don't want to open the door to carbohydrates because they're like, I have no control with carbs. Stop telling yourself a story like that. I have no control. You are the only person that has control. You are the only person that dictates what goes in your mouth and what doesn't, right? Period. So nobody's coming in holding a gun to your head and saying you have to eat, your own body weight in cookies or sweet potatoes or whatever it is. So find that balance and be responsible for it, right? Eat like an adult. So I think that's everything that I wanted to cover for this episode. Do you have any thoughts on any of that?
No, I think you covered everything.
Boom, bada boom. So I told you notes would help. All right, so now like you didn't argue with me. I'm just tooting my own horn. So, question and answer time. So we've got a couple questions here. I am going to, God, I got more than enough. I'm going to do 2 of these right now, and I'll save the others. So, Mike, I'm going to get your question because I know you said you literally were like, oh, man, on the last episode. So I'm going to cover your question, and then I am going to cover the long one. I promise for anonymity, but I'm going to cover the long one that ties into today's episode. And then the other ones I have we'll cover on next week's episode. But so let's go with the longer question first, and then Mike, save the best for last, right? So there you go. So the long question is, she said, she's referring to last week's episode. She said, so I listened to the podcast today. It was super helpful. I'm glad you put out another one. I was waiting. Smiley face. Thank you for that. So I have a couple questions about my journey specifically. In the beginning, I was really sedentary. I never adjusted my calorie intake from that. You were right. I needed to adjust it. You mentioned not to have more than a 500 calorie deficit. I wear a Fitbit and I start my day with a workout, usually a minor 20 to 25 minutes of cardio 5 days a week. About 15 minutes of weightlifting 4 days a week. I then use a weighted hula hoop, because it does indeed keep things fun, for 30 minutes. I also walk 30 minutes with an 8-pound weight vest 5 times a week. So you can see all of this activity like adding up, right? Like piling up. I was reading it to Holly and she was like, good Lord. So like this, everything that she's talking about doing, like that's me on like one of my psycho days. Like I'm just going to hammer myself today, right? But that's like what, once a month or twice a month or something that I do that. I then go about my day, which could be anything from housekeeping to remodeling something because she gets bored easily. And her Fitbit records her heart rate. It tells her food app that she burns anywhere from 900 to 1,800 calories. And this one floored me. It's nothing for me to walk on a normal day outside of her workout anywhere from 18 to 25 miles in a day.
So crazy.
That's insane, right? Because if you figure a mile is usually like 2,000 to 2,500 steps, depending on your height and stride length, that means minimum 18 miles. She's doing like 36,000 steps a day up to whatever 25 miles times 2,500 would be.
That's when we got lost in the woods.
That's a lot, yeah. So that's like 75,000 plus. Yeah, I mean we did like 37,000 steps lost in the woods all day long. So, but she continues. If I don't have any idea what I'm doing that day or caloric deficit, how do I balance that? I mean, an extra 1,300-ish. I think she's saying eating an extra 1,300-ish calories at 6 p.m. is a full day's worth of meals to eat. Is there a way to combat that? I mean, once in a while I'm just still after my workout, like she's not moving, but not very often. So most of this I've already kind of answered, but I figured this would be perfect to just kind of give people an idea of like what we see on a fairly regular basis. And this is like the ones that we're talking about, the other clients earlier. One is like super active on her job. She's logging all kinds of steps. She eats like twice throughout the day. Another one is logging all kinds of miles running 3-4 times a week. And I mean, eats like an egg for breakfast. So you definitely need to be mindful of all this. So with all of that activity, like I said, one of the things you could do is just decrease the activity. Now, psychologically, that can kind of screw with people because sometimes, I know with the clients that run, like that running is a cathartic thing. It's a release. Mm-hmm. And I get it. But going for a walk can also be a cathartic release, and it's not as hard on the body and it's not going to burn as many calories. So that's one thing you could do is like swap out walking for running, or maybe find a hill and run up and down the hill for 20 minutes instead of going for an hour long jog. I mean, just to shorten things up and change up the demand on your body a little bit. So decrease the activity, that will bring that deficit down, right? The other thing, like she was saying, the 1,300-ish calories, this one takes a little bit of time, but if you can front load your calories, one of my favorite things is like eat breakfast like a king, lunch like a prince, dinner like a pauper. I'm a big fan of time restricted eating, but I'm a bigger fan of trying to not eat late at night. And I think most people, when they do time restricted eating, they skip breakfast. They maybe have like a late or early lunch or a really, really, really late breakfast, and then they have a big dinner, and then they go to bed. And the problem with that is your body is doing a lot of recovery when you're going to sleep, so you don't want a ton of food on your stomach. I try to get people to at least give yourself 3 hours from your last meal to when you go to bed. For she and I, we're closer to like 5 hours, usually like 4 or 5 hours. Yeah. So that said, again, we come home and we're starving. If I'm in a 1,600 calorie deficit for whatever reason, I'm probably going to eat about 1,000 calories. Now, how would I get 1,000 calories? How, I see that 13,000 calories that she's saying, is it's tough to eat. Sorry, I went 13,000. Yeah, 13,000. I could do that too. But how do you get an extra 1,300 calories? Sweet potatoes, protein, macadamias, almond butters. Yeah, I mean, that to me is like, ooh. But then because I'm going to be going to bed not too soon after that, I'm probably going to do some enzymes. I might do some blood sugar control stuff like berberine or something along that line to help blunt the blood sugar response to it. But so basically, reduce the activity. 1, 2. Get more of your calories earlier in the day. And if you're kind of constantly going and constantly moving, there are days where my first 2 or 3 meals are shakes, but it's like protein powder and carbs, protein powder and MCT oil, protein powder and ketones. It might be something like that. That's far from ideal, but if I don't have time to eat and I still want that nutrition coming in, that's a good way for me to get to 1,400 calories before I even have my first solid meal, right? So a little bit of tahini or almond butter too goes a long way. Cashew butter, ooh, buddy. So yeah, that's mostly, like I said, I just wanted to read that to give people kind of a understanding of what a typical scenario is when it comes to that. So the question I skipped last week that I wanted to get to for sure this week is basically he's just asking like to help understand the effects of each macronutrient on your health. So again, macronutrients, protein, carbs, fats. So what are the effects of each macronutrient on your health? And I know this is pretty much a me question, but I'm just going to let you know, like, be ready, because I'm going to ask you that. I'm going to make sure that you don't trip over it. So I'm not even going to go first just to give you a warm-up. But back to the point, you'll understand here in a minute if you're listening. So the effects of each macro on health. Again, this can be a whole episode in and of itself. But to answer the question somewhat briefly, protein, fats, carbohydrates. Proteins are used for all kinds of stuff throughout the body. So they are obviously for repair of muscle tissue and other bodily tissues. They are used as the building blocks for neurotransmitters and neuromodulators. I believe they're used for like certain hormones. Well, yeah. So like, for example, tyrosine is an amino acid, i.e. a protein, right? Amino acids are the building blocks for proteins. Tyrosine will convert to something called dopamine in your brain. Dopamine is what you have. Like, I'm high dopamine. She's lower-ish than me dopamine, which is why in the mornings my ass is running circles around the couch, and she's just like, could you bring it down? And I'm like, I need you to bring it up. But so tyrosine converts to dopamine, and if you're not getting adequate tyrosine, then you're going to be, lower in that dopamine. Going back to the thyroid, tyrosine also plays into your thyroid. Adequate tyrosine intake is needed for your thyroid hormones. Another amino acid that is important is one of the essential amino acids is tryptophan. Tryptophan, most people think turkey, right? It's in other things too, but tryptophan will eventually in your brain convert to serotonin. Serotonin is a feel-good neurotransmitter. Serotonin is like the social neurotransmitter, right? So like, if you're low serotonin, you're probably going to be higher in anxiety, possibly higher in depression. And if you get adequate serotonin, you're probably going to feel happier and more balanced. This is where people take SSRIs, but that's another episode for another podcast. But there are ways to increase your serotonin more naturally. Something like look into saffron extract. That'll help you. But yeah, so I don't want to go down a rabbit hole as I'm trying to wrap this episode up. But again, if you have questions, send them to us, nutrienthaf@gmail.com. The guy that asked this question also had a great way, nutrient HAF, you can just think of it as nutrient healthy as F at gmail.com. Send those questions. But so the tryptophan will convert to serotonin, and serotonin will convert to melatonin. Melatonin is a hormone in your body that helps you sleep, but it's also one of the most potent antioxidants for your brain. So if you're deficient in melatonin, you're basically kind of screwing your brain out of its nightly cleansing. So proteins are important for all of those issues, factors, and more. Fats, I mentioned kind of in passing in this episode, but fats are the building blocks. Fats and cholesterols are the building blocks for a lot of your hormones, right? So if you're deficient in fats, then you're going to be deficient in the building blocks for things like testosterone and estrogen and progesterone and all that. So you need those fats for that. You also need fat for like some cushioning, like in your joints and all that. If you go on a low-fat diet for too long, you'll notice that your joints start to just kind of ache because they're not lubricated, they're not cushioned. So fats are used for those. Fats are also used as a fuel source, right? So, which is a perfect segue into carbohydrates. Carbohydrates are used as a fuel source. The difference between those two, and this is just a big generalization, but fats and carbohydrates are more of like a rocket fuel, intense, like quick burst, quick boom, sprinting, explosive energy, whereas fats are like more of a prolonged, slow burning energy. Carbohydrates are used for other, areas in your body that need glycogen. The only thing with that is if your body, you can survive on proteins and fats alone. You can survive without carbohydrates because your body has other, again, fail-safes, something like gluconeogenesis, where it takes proteins and fats and turns them into glucose from a different thing, right? That's part of what the ketogenic diet does. Is the ketogenic diet is breaking down stored fats and producing ketones, and a byproduct of that is you're also getting some glycogen from the breakdown of the triglycerides. So, Yeah, so carbohydrates are a good fuel source, and they help fuel other things.
And
so
calm you down too.
Yeah, all right, I think that should be it. I will answer the other questions. We've got 4 others on here, but again, guys, like we'll answer the other questions on episode 15. If you have questions, please email them to nutrienthaf@gmail.com or text them to Holly and I. Find us on Facebook, find us on YouTube, find us on Instagram. We're all over the place. So,
Let me do it. I got this.
Are you sure?
I got this.
We got a catchphrase.
Got a catchphrase.
I was trying to get her hyped up on this catchphrase. I've been putting her on the spot for months and months and months, and we came up with a catchphrase. It's current. I don't know if it's gonna stick.
The catchphrase.
I like it. Yeah, I don't know if it's the catchphrase, but I like it. So, Holly Danielle, we're wrapping up the podcast.
So
Hit him with the catchphrase.
Stop trying. Stop talking. Start doing and start succeeding.
Boom.
Boom.
I like it.
That's
Mic
for
drop.
you, Mike.
Yep. Stop trying. Stop talking. Start doing and start succeeding.
Yeah.
I like it. So, it's a little long though. I don't know. I might just be like, stop and start. That's it right there. All right, y'all. Everyone, thank you so much for listening. If anything in this episode helps you, please share it. Please tell other people. All we're trying to do is grow this effing podcast. We're trying to get better at doing this. We're trying to give you answers. We're trying to help you. I don't have shit to sell. Do you have anything to sell?
No.
She doesn't have anything to sell. I'm not making any profit off of this. Are you making any profit off of this?
No.
No, right? We're taking time out of our day to answer questions because this is what we do and this is what we love. I see so many people with podcasts that are just giant and all they're doing is hawking supplements and all they're doing is hawking programs and they don't really have a lot of passion. People comment and ask questions in their YouTube videos and they don't answer any of the questions. If I see somebody ask a question on a YouTube video, I'm answering that shit in the first 5 minutes that I see him ask the question.
You get so excited.
Yes. So you guys know, if anybody listen to this, if you know me, if you know her, you know we love what we do and you know we're passionate about this. So hit us up with the questions. Help us grow this bad boy. Help us make this motherfucker a monster. So we love everyone that's listening to this. I hope we helped you some way, shape, or form. I hope we entertained you. I hope you got an emotional experience from this and that you're recharged for the day. So episode number 14 is in the books. We will be back next weekend with episode number 15. Until then, I hope you all have a fantastic week. Kick all kinds of ass. Get out of that monster deficit and start living the life that you want to live. So with that, anything?
Make it a great week.
Make it a great week. All right, everybody. We love y'all. We will talk to you soon.
Bye.
Bye.